Hi there, I'm here with Simon Hall. And Simon, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your Mortem and Gloriam system. I've played a few different rule sets. Back in the day I played a lot of Warhammer, for example. And we used to one player moving everything and then they sit down and then the next player. But I found there was a very different kind of feel to this game.
Yeah.
Can you explain your thinking behind it, how you went about it?
Sure. I mean, let me go all the way back to sort of first principles for a minute. When I started wargaming with friends in Lancashire years and years ago, we always said, okay, a battle's continuously happening. Things are always moving.
Yes.
And we used to actually try and play simultaneous moving games. And we did them between friends. We'd almost go and say, let's simultaneously say what we're each going to do over here. And let's simultaneously say what we're going to do each other. And obviously that's not a system that can work in this kind of game. And then we tried issuing orders in advance. But even that's not terribly realistic because people react to what's going on. So when I started doing this, having played also lots of those games with a similar type of thing, one of my first thoughts was, actually, you doing everything and me sitting here, and then me doing everything and you sitting there is actually quite a long way from that reality.
Especially with certain players I've played with.
Yes, and yeah. There's also that. You can sit and watch for a long time. So it's for two reasons. I'm not that keen on it, but I thought, well, it's served as well. Can I think of anything better? And then I started to say to myself, well, can I create something which gets closer to that feel of simultaneously what's going on in a battle? And I created this idea then of the joint turn, where you're both involved all the time, and you're alternating doing something. And then all that I found you needed to add was the right additions to that basic system to make it feel exactly right for the period you're dealing with. So with ancients, for instance, you don't want to feel, well, I move one unit, you move one unit, because that isn't also how ancient battles felt. So what you'll find in the rules is we have things called block moves that are very beneficial. So in the game, in this game, what you'll find is you'll be alternating, but you will be alternating moving big blocks of troops at the beginning. So you'll be moving an entire wing, an entire centre.
That speeds up the process.
It speeds up the process, but it also feels very real, because at the beginning of battles, that's what people were doing. Let's attack on the right wing, let's hold on the left, let's advance everywhere. So you'll find in the early part of the game, your moving parts are usually between 3 and 5 big blocks. Then as the battle sort of deteriorates into typical chaos of a battle, you'll find individual units are starting to move.
Yes.
And at that point you've got somewhere between 10 and 20 moving parts in the game. And then when you get into combat and all sorts of things happening, you start moving individual bases, and now you've got between 50 and 100 moving parts. Okay. So the whole concept of the system was to try and get as close to that feel of simultaneous movement going on. So it's very interesting in the sense that you don't have a fixed number of moving parts.
Yes.
You sort of start with a small number, end up with it growing into units, and ending up with individual base, which just feels, to me, feels very right.
The building of chaos in a battle.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the building, and it keeps it simultaneous. And then the fact that you're alternating, from a game point of view as well, creates a lot of fun, because you're never sitting there watching, and you never know quite what's coming. So you've probably already found playing it. You're sitting making your plan of what to do when the other, and then they move. You think, it's interesting. I'm going to have to react a little bit like that. So you get these moves and counters and the continuous thought. And if you think of a general on the battlefield, I mean, in a different period where I have good reports of it, if I go back to Wellington at Waterloo, that was happening continuously. He was riding up and down the line all the time, reacting to what he was seeing, checking everything was in place, making on-the-spot decisions. So the whole system for me was designed to try and make it feel much more interactive and real, which a real battle is. Because in a real battle, you don't stand opposite each other and say, okay, you hit me with the sword, bang, okay, now my turn, I'll hit you with the sword, bang. It just doesn't work that way, does it?
Of course, the quality of your commanders, as things deteriorate and get more hairy, you really want your top commanders to take control.
Very handy having Caesar in the line when it gets chaotic.
Okay.
Yes, for definite.
I do recall trying out a very mediocre commander, and when things got chaotic, he totally lost control of everything.
Yeah, exactly. So it's sort of okay at the beginning, and then the mini chaos cuts in, he's already lost control, and then the big chaos cuts, he's got no control at all. It's all gone to pot. So, and all I can say is the players who play it, feedback to me that it feels incredibly realistic compared to other games they've played, and has a really nice fun feel as well because they interact well. So it seems to have ticked the two boxes, but that's the origin of the concept.
Yes.
It was to go back and try and get as near to interactivity and neo simultaneous movements as I possibly could.
I noticed one of the first competition or large games that I saw, there were a few players who were still in the old mindset. They sort of thought they'd finished their turn and they'd go and grab a drink, and it's, no, you focus the entire time. You step away for 2 minutes and there's problems.
You more often than not now, if you play this game, you'll have a communal coffee break. It's not one of those where you go off to get yourself a coffee because there's 20 minutes. You've got 20 minutes to leave somebody to do what they want to know. I mean, you are interacting every couple of minutes. And actually, if you're trying to play the game well, you're watching pretty carefully all the time as well. So it's, but it's because the system's not difficult to play. People tell me that's not much of a mind strain. You might think that's a mind strain. It actually isn't, because it's an easy game to play in all of its mechanics. So you're focusing much more on your decisions. And that was another part of the whole thing, is that I want people to have 80% of their brain power focused on thinking about what to do as a general.
Yes. Rather than
20%
the rules and the charts
and maths and other things, and 20% worrying about the rest.
Yes.
So that was another big important ambition with the game, which seems to have struck home with players.
Okay. And I think just now you're going to take us through some of the aspects of how the rules work and how you aren't married to a piece of paper or a chart. And that was also quite an appeal that I saw with the speed of the game.
Yes, you'll see some of that as you go into how we do. Every game I've ever played has got 4 bits to it, really, hasn't it? It's got, you have to move your stuff, you shoot, you fight, and something to do with morale. So we'll go through and explain how all of these concepts work within the game. But as you say, they're all individually quite dynamic and fast moving and relatively easy. And that actually fundamentally is because of the design of this colour system. Which actually was no easy thing. I started, just to tell people, I started inventing this in 2010.
Okay, it's taken a while.
That's the first time I had the idea of doing it, and I got a set running privately. So it took me from then till 2016 to find the happy version that I was happy with all the stats and the profiles of it to self-publish.
A good example of iterative design here.
Yes, you have to experiment, and I started off. For instance, I had 4 colours for quite a while, and gradually persuaded myself, no, it needs 5. It suddenly clicks when you have 5, and that sort of development on something totally new takes time, because this isn't an adapted system. It's not. A lot of rule sets over the years have been adapting a previous rule set, and taking the same concepts forward in a good way. This is actually entirely new.
I did notice at a previous competition some complete new players who'd never played before, and by the end of the day they were fluent with the army and the rules.
No, I think I think fluent. I think if you come to play, by the time you've played your second game, you've got a pretty good feel for what's going on and what to do. We've had people come to competitions in the UK, very famously 3 people came to pretty major competitions, 6 round competitions at times of the big game, never having played. Not once. So that's 3 people who've come along never having played a game, and we openly said to them, just come along, the players will teach you as you go, and I'll help out. I played them in the first game. By the end of that, they were already pretty comfortable, and they played game 2, and every single one of them won a game at the end of that as well.
Okay.
So it's not difficult to pick up. What is difficult, which is good about the rules, is there's such richness of character in the armies in this, which we'll talk about in another video, because that was another objective, that mastering an army properly actually takes some time.
And I think you need to take me through some armies there a bit later as well, as we try and work out where do I start with an army.
Let's do that. Let's do that.
Thank you.